More of a team player, I repeated, keeping my voice even as my nails dug into my palm beneath the desk. Across from me, Helen McBride sat poised in her glass-walled office, the Chicago skyline glittering behind her. Mid-50s, blazer straining at the seams, smile like lacquer. She leaned back, voice honeyed and rehearsed. "Camille, you're brilliant. But Rachel, she's magnetic. People gravitate to her. She's just easier. Not better. Just easier." I was 41. I'd joined Weslake Strategies at 35, trading lesson plans for boardrooms. 6 years of late nights, crisis calls, and cleaning up messes no one else would touch. I doubled our Midwest accounts, redesigned training protocols, and saved the company nearly $2 million in waste. Rachel? She took filtered lunch selfies and posted #girlboss quotes. She got the promotion. Helen shuffled papers she didn't need to look at, waiting for me to smile, to nod, to thank her. Instead, I slid a crisp white envelope across her desk. "I appreciate the feedback," I said smoothly. "Here's my resignation. Effective in 2 weeks." Helen blinked. "Camille, wait. Let's talk this through." "No need," I said, standing. "You've made your priorities clear. I believe in outcomes. Which is why I'm leaving." What she didn't know, what no one knew, was that while Rachel networked, I'd been building something of my own. A leadership development firm. Fully registered. Quietly profitable since last quarter. I didn't lose. I evolved. If you felt this in your gut, subscribe and stay with me, because Camille isn't done. Not even close. Walking away isn't quitting. It's leveling up. As I left Helen's office, the atmosphere shifted. Heads turned. Voices dropped. Rachel was probably already planning where to hang her vision board above my old desk. I walked back to my cubicle like it was any other Monday. But inside that resignation envelope? A second document. One that would make Helen's next latte curdle. The next 2 weeks were performance art. Rachel paraded through the bullpen, latte in hand, basking in imagined spotlight. On day 4, she leaned against my cubicle wall. "Cam, I hope you're not too disappointed. I mean, I know you really wanted that role." I glanced up, smiled faintly, and continued backing up 3 years' worth of data, metrics, playbooks, ops systems. Not to steal. To document. Every dollar saved. Every process optimized. Every win tied to my team. "No hard feelings, Rachel," I said coolly. "You'll do great." She left, satisfied. She didn't know what she was standing on. 3 years ago, out of frustration, I began developing a software platform, adaptive performance tools for teams. Built off hours. On my dime. On my terms. Last week, the patent came through. And that second page of my resignation? It detailed the platform's impact, millions in retained revenue and increased efficiency. Tied directly to me. A week later, Jared Lewis's CEO of Architect Solutions, our fiercest competitor, emailed me. Over coffee, he didn't offer a job. He offered a stake. Equity. Autonomy. A future. He slid a contract across the table. "We've been waiting for someone like you," he said. "Someone who understands that legacies are built on impact, not image." As I signed, I felt something click into place. This was real recognition. Not applause for politeness, but respect for results. On my last day at Westlake, just as I turned in my badge, Helen called me in one final time. The polish was gone. Her hands trembled slightly. "Camille," she said, lifting the report. "Why didn't you tell us about this platform?" I adjusted my blazer and sat across from her. "I did," I said. 3 times. Each proposal got dismissed. "You said you were focused on interpersonal chemistry." She skimmed the data, workflow automation, cost reductions, predictive forecasting. Her face paled. "And it's patented," she whispered. I nodded. "Filed last fall. Approved last week. And I've accepted a partnership with Architect Solutions. They're preparing to scale it firm-wide." she gasped. Architect? Camille, you can't. They're our main competitor. What about loyalty? I tilted my head. Loyalty? Like promoting charm over competence? Or ignoring innovation because it didn't come with a cocktail hour? She opened her mouth to respond. I didn't wait. If you'd prioritized performance over politics, we wouldn't be here. She blinked, stunned. We'll match their offer, she said hastily. Senior Vice President, just stay. It was never about the title, I said. It was about being seen. As I walked out, I heard the hurried dialing behind me, but the call was too late. If you believe respect isn't something you beg for, but something you earn, stick around. Because Camille's not just leaving. She's about to build something no one saw coming. The patent? Mine. The ink on the partnership deal? Already dry. And Rachel? She was about to find out the hard way. Charm might open doors, but only results keep them from slamming shut. That night, as I packed the last of my things, I spotted a sticky note on my monitor. Sad to see you go. Stay in touch. Rachel. I smirked, crumpled it, and tossed it. She'd hear my name again soon. In fact, the whole industry would. My first day at Architect Solutions felt like stepping into another world. No beige cubicles, no passive-aggressive Slack threads. Just floor-to-ceiling windows and a nameplate that read, Camille Bennett, Partner, Strategy Systems Innovation. But the real change wasn't the office. It was the respect. Jared Lewis, the CEO, held a full company meeting to welcome me. Not a generic intro, a statement. He told my story, what I'd built, what it had saved, and how it was already transforming operations. Camille isn't filling a seat, Jared said. She's opening a new chapter. Her platform is proven, and this is just the beginning. At Weslake, I was invisible. At Architect, I was the architect. 3 months in, the moment came. Midway through a strategy workshop, my phone buzzed. A message from Tarek Henderson, one of the few sharp minds left at Weslake. Check the news, big one just dropped. I stepped into my office and pulled up the headline. Weslake Strategies bleeds clients after Q2 systems breakdown. The story was ruthless, missed deadlines, runaway budgets, and the loss of 3 flagship clients. The diagnosis? Internal systems, fractured, undocumented, unscalable. But one quote hit hardest. We once trusted Weslake for enterprise-level integrations. Now, they can't even meet basic timelines. It's like the backbone of their operations vanished. Thomas Kwan, CEO, Terranova Solutions. I smiled. I was that backbone. The system they ignored, handed off, gutted, was now imploding without me. Another buzz. Tarek again. Rachel's having a full-blown meltdown in the break room. I leaned back in my chair, sunlight glinting off Lake Michigan behind me. I didn't need revenge. I had results. If you've ever been passed over for someone louder but less capable, subscribe, because Camille's not done rising. And the next chapter? It's going to shake the entire industry. Rachel had mastered the illusion of competence. But when substance left the building, so did stability. Helen, she gambled on image, and now, she was watching it unravel, publicly. Meanwhile, I had bigger moves in play. At Architect, my system wasn't just running, it was redefining everything. Project timelines, down 52%. Client satisfaction, record-breaking. Ops KPIs, off the charts. Jared had greenlit a full rollout. 3 Fortune 100 companies were already in talks to license it. They underestimated me. Now they were racing to catch up. 6 months after walking out of Westlake, I stepped into my office to find Jared by my desk, holding a folded copy of the Chicago Business Ledger. Have you seen this? He asked, lifting the front page. Weslake Strategies announces emergency restructure amid system collapse. I took the paper and nodded. They're finally admitting what happens when you ignore the right voices. Jared exhaled. They tried to rebuild your platform internally, but they couldn't replicate the logic. I looked out across the lake. They thought it was about the code. But it was never just the code. It was the thinking behind it. He smiled. Which is why the board voted unanimously to promote you. I turned toward him. Starting next week, Jared said. You're our executive vice president of strategic innovation. You haven't just improved our systems. You've changed our direction. The quiet warmth that spread through my chest was unmistakable. This was what real recognition felt like. Not applause for playing nice, but respect for building something solid, something enduring. That afternoon, as the Chicago skyline glowed golden in the sunset, an unexpected email landed in my inbox. Subject: apology. I assume you've heard what's happening at Weslake. I want you to know that I was wrong. Dismissing your work was the worst mistake of my career. The board knows now. They know what you built and what we lost. I resigned last week. Rachel stepped down a month ago. Turns out deliverables don't respond to charm. I stared at the screen, emotion flickering behind my eyes. Validation had arrived. Not that I needed it. But it was poetic, nonetheless. Helen's email continued. I know it's too late to change what happened. But I wanted you to know that you were right. Results do matter. I just wish I'd seen that sooner. Best. Helen. I read it twice. There was a time when even a late apology like this would have stirred something inside me. When recognition, no matter how delayed, might have patched the wounds. But that time was over. Now, in my corner office at Architect Solutions, sunlight glinted off the glass frame surrounding my patent certificate. Behind me, a polished plaque from our highest performing quarter. On the shelf, a fresh issue of Forbes, open to an article naming me one of the top 10 women redefining tech innovation. Helen's message? It wasn't a reckoning. It was a footnote. I clicked reply and typed. Thank you for your message. You're right, results do matter. I wish you well in what comes next. I hit send, then took a moment to look around my office. Every inch of this space, every ounce of respect it held, it had been earned. Not handed to me. Not bartered for. Built. The next morning, I called a full team meeting. Engineers, analysts, designers filled the room. No one was here to check a box. They were here because they cared. Once we settled, I stood. Before we dig into our next major rollout, I began. I want to share a quick story. Not about strategy or code, but about value. About recognizing it in others, and about never letting anyone else define your worth. Heads nodded, eyes sharpened. We were building something bigger, together. As I spoke, they leaned in. Not just to the words, but to the weight behind them. They understood. They knew that this company, our company, wasn't running on image or ego. It was powered by integrity. By courage. By the quiet strength that, when aligned with purpose, builds movements. Later that evening, as I drove past Weslake Strategies, I slowed at the red light. Their once proud logo, now weathered and dimmed by time, stood in stark contrast to the for lease sign blinking in the fourth-floor window. Downsizing again. But I didn't feel smug. I felt grateful. Grateful that they couldn't see me. Grateful that they dismissed what I had created. Grateful because in pushing me out, they set me free to build something better. Sometimes the greatest gifts come dressed as rejection. Sometimes being too focused on results is exactly what makes you unstoppable. And sometimes, the best way to respond to being underestimated is to build something so impactful that they can't look away. My phone buzzed. A message from Tarek lit up the screen. Westlake's board is asking about you. They're wondering if you'd consider coming back as CEO. I stared at the screen for a moment, then typed back slowly. Appreciate it, Tarek. But I'm exactly where I need to be. Because real success isn't about proving anyone wrong. It's about proving yourself right. It's about standing firm in your own value, especially when no one else does. It's about refusing to shrink for someone else's comfort, and choosing to rise for your own purpose. And that's where the story really begins. As I pulled into the garage of my Lincoln Park townhome, I found myself thinking about all the other Camilles out there, quiet professionals doing exceptional work, always passed over because they don't shout the loudest, or play the political game. Maybe my story, the one I lived, will reach one of them. Maybe it will be the spark they need to stop waiting for approval and start building without it. Because sometimes rejection isn't a dead end. It's a redirection. You take the dismissal. You take the silence. And you turn it into momentum. Into systems. Into platforms. Into legacies. That prove you're too much was always just code for you're beyond what they could handle. That night, sitting in my home office, reviewing global licensing proposals for the system I once built in secret, I felt a deep sense of peace. Above my desk, framed in matte black, was the quote Helen once tossed at me like an insult. You're too focused on results. She wasn't wrong. That focus, it's exactly what brought me here. To leadership. To innovation. To clarity. To the place I was always meant to stand, on my own terms. If you've made it this far, thank you. Truly. This story wasn't just about me. It was about every person who's ever been told they were too much, too focused, too serious, or just not enough in all the wrong ways. If you saw yourself in my journey, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. Tell me where you are in your own story. Because I know how lonely it can feel when you're doing the work, getting the results, but still getting passed over. Been there. And I promise you, you're not invisible. You're not imagining it. You're not asking for too much, when all you want is to be respected for what you bring to the table. If this story moved you, please consider subscribing, not just to follow what happens next, but to become part of a community that believes in quiet strength, in earned success, in resilience without spectacle. We're building something here for people like us. And if I could offer one piece of advice, it's this. Stop waiting for permission. Stop shrinking to fit their comfort. Don't let someone else's inability to see your value become the reason you stop believing in it yourself. Use their doubt as fuel. Use their silence as space to create. Keep showing up. Keep building. Because one day, they'll realize what they lost. And by then, you'll already be somewhere better, somewhere built by your own two hands. This is your sign. This is your moment. You don't have to prove them wrong. You just have to prove yourself right.